Okay, so this is the circulation meeting. I'm on time, right? It's 11 o'clock. Okay. So how's everybody doing? The agenda link is in the chat box. There's a place to sign in there if you like. There is not a lot on the agenda as usual. It's just kind of whatever you guys want to talk about. The one thing I did have on here is I am not available for next month's meeting. Um, it's my daughter's birthday, and we actually have tickets to see Weird Al that night. So I've got a full day. And I have, so does anybody here want to volunteer to run this meeting next, in June, or do you just want to skip it?
I vote skip.
Okay. The one person that had an idea is enough to sway the whole group. I'll just put out a message that we're going to
It
cancel it since,
wasn't my idea. Trevor was asked the question and I was just answering it.
oh, it was that before I got here?
And like I was gonna say, I could host it, but it's also during the ALA conference, so I don't know if
Yeah,
people want to say, "Oh no, we're gonna be going to that."
that's the reason I never go to ALA is it's my daughter's birthday. They always have it on my daughter's birthday. So uh, why don't, since it is ALA, why don't we just plan to give that one a miss, and I'll send out an announcement to that effect. And we'll call that good. And that's the only thing on the agenda. So anything else we want to talk about is entirely up to us here today. So if anybody has any questions, any issues, any problems, anything they've got going on, it sounded like you guys were talking about disc cleaning when I came into the room. So,
Well, so the reason I'm asking is we specifically had a question of, "Hey, this item came in from another library for my patron. It's got the wrong disc in the case."
oh,
So she needs to do something to it so that when she sends it back home, she doesn't check it in to do that, and it's like, "Oh, alert! This can fill a hold." Um, and so I was like, well, nothing under damaged or lost is really exactly correct. So I could
right.
add a status. I know how to do that. I just was curious as to which status bucket I should put it in. But then Jason unhelpfully was like, oh, put it in this fourth place called not for loan. Which
Well,
that's
in that
something you can edit for
scenario,
other libraries' items.
yeah, it's just another one of the status at the top. I think in that scenario though that you explained, we probably would just withdraw it, like a plain old withdrawn with a note that says so that when you check it in, it doesn't trigger anything.
When I was at Lake County Library, the rule was you check everything before you check it out, you make sure it's all there. And before you check it in, you make sure it's all there. And that way you don't end up with those situations where you're checking something out to a patron with the wrong disc or with an incomplete set. And then we had a whole process for what to do if something comes in and it doesn't have all of its pieces. And here our libraries are all over the place on checking stuff when they for to see if it's complete or correct before they send it out. And I've never come up with a good way as a system manager to, because there's nothing I can do. There isn't a big stick I can hold over their head uh, like I could when I was actually signing the time cards for the people that work for me. Um, so I've never found a good way other than yelling at people and saying, remember to make sure it's all there before you check it out and make sure it's all there before you check it back in. So
I was, I know that there's a way to tell Koha not to trap holds for not for loan statuses. Are there other statuses that you can tell it not to trap holds for?
I would think so. Like I'm pretty. Not, so missing is a lost status
Right.
and it doesn't trap holds. So I will, and I would hope slash think all of the lost statuses automatically make it ineligible to fill a hold.
It won't fill a hold, and it won't appear on the holds queue if it has a lost status. But if it's checked, but if it has that status and you check it in, the first thing that happens when you check an item in is it clears the lost status.
If you have it set to do that. Did
Yeah,
you have to say which ones can be changed by a
that's
check-in?
true. What we have is we have a lost status. I think it's just called incomplete. I'm trying to look in my system to see what this where lost is. There it is.
I think we have a lost or a not for loan status we call workroom that kind of is what we use.
Yeah, what I have is a status called incomplete. And then with the bundle feature that we're not currently using, there's a status built into Koha called incomplete item is missing from bundle.
Yeah, we do not for loan and also under the damage status missing component.
Mm.
Way we notify other libraries if we find something missing is we put a big note on it and then we also email them.
Yeah, that's what
when
we
we
do.
send it
Big
back.
sticky note.
The problem I have here is that they're all inconsistent about what they do and how they handle it. And I had that problem even when I could yell at people and say, God damn it, even when I was their direct supervisor, I still had a problem. One time I had an item that showed up at the Moscow library to fill a request, and I opened it up and there was nothing in it. And when I went to look to see who the last patron that had it checked out was, it was the supervisor at the Genesee branch. So she had taken it home. She had checked it, and then when I called her, she said, "Oh yeah, there was no disc in that when I checked it out." And then I had a long discussion with her about what she was supposed to be doing.
You mentioned that sometimes it's hard to get people to like check the discs that's one of the things that I know I discovered you can set by item type the check-in message.
Yeah.
And I know they still probably don't read it, but one of the things I did was I used some CSS to make that much more prominent too. I've learned a lot of things watching you guys do that. I'm like, oh, I can do that.
Yeah, I think I use CSS, and I think there's an alert, an audio alert that goes with that too.
The only problem I have is we also have a sort assistant from FE Tech, and so anything I put on Koha for check-in messages, my staff don't see.
Right.
So.
The Lawrence Public Library has a sorter and the RFID, and they put the actual RFID on one of the discs. So if the disc isn't in there, it won't actually check the item in.
We've kind of found that if you have too many RFIDs in one case, though, sometimes it doesn't like that.
Yeah, and they only put the RFID on one disc in a multi-disc set, which is problematic. Anything else going on? So when you were talking, I thought you were talking about a disc cleaning machine. We have one of those at our office that people can send discs in if they need to be cleaned.
Yeah, we have a status for that and not for loan, and it's one that clears on check-in, I think.
Hmm. I guess that's a legitimate question here. I was just updating a bad record for a DVD, How many are you guys seeing a fall off in the number of DVDs your libraries are purchasing?
With the number of streaming services and it being hit or miss what people can subscribe to and everything, we've actually feel like we are doing more, especially TV series. Sometimes you just can't get the series though from some streaming services, but a lot of people really want to be able to see what everybody's talking about and they can't afford to subscribe to all the services. We are getting rid of our books on CD though, which is a very painful thing to do.
That's interesting.
We saw VHS, so of course we were still buying DVDs. My latest video kerfuffle was with Ultra HD Blu-rays because much like the jump from DVD to Blu-ray, you need a different player to play Ultra HD Blu-rays. So I went through and added little icons for everything, and I had to clean everything up and send out an email about if they get a combo pack, they have to split those. So, and it was all for like 6 things in our catalog, but they had to have The Mandalorian on physical media, and that was the only way they could get it. So we had to address that with education.
I don't know if it's still in my office. Maybe it is. Oh, here it is. Here it is. Way over here. This turned up at one of our libraries recently. Let me turn off the background. We have this at one of our libraries.
Oh.
We've had an issue in the last couple of years with a lot of these. This is a bootleg. It's not for sale in the United States of America. It's never been officially released by Disney on DVD. This is a CDR, a very well done, or DVD-R. But we've had a lot of issues with bootlegs that there's one weird little website. I don't remember what the name of it is, but you can buy. One of the other things that turned up from them was a like a 1974 television production of Carousel starring Robert Goulet. There was like a 90-minute television production. And when you put the DVD in to watch it, it actually starts with the fuzzy white snow from a television recording and the blue screen of the VCR telling you what speed it was recorded in. And I had a library that just found this site and ordered all kinds of things that have never been officially authorized for actual sale. And I've had people order things that put things in the catalog that are not region 1, so nobody can play them unless you have a computer and the software to play non-region 1. Or I guess it's region 1 for DVD and it's region A for Blu-ray. And so we've had a big issue with those. We've had one of our libraries bought Killers of the Flower Moon on DVD, which has never been released on physical media, and we've had a lot of issues like that. So we actually had to add and I also had a bunch of people that started. Somebody donated a whole bunch of ARCs to the library, advanced reading copies, and and so they thought, oh wow, look at all these great donations, and they cataloged all of them, and they're all incomplete with extra chapters, spelling errors, and all those. So we had to write a bootleg and advanced reading copy policy to our consortia guidelines that say you can't add those things. And actually, ARCs, what I said is you can add them, but they have to be on a separate record and they have to be clearly labeled as ARCs, because there's nothing wrong with adding an ARC to the catalog so long as it's marked as such. So I don't know if anybody else has had those kind of issues.
We have to kind of limit what our staff members are able to buy from Amazon because of that. You get some really odd stuff. But one of the things we ran into is we tried to add a collection of picture books for adults that for like people with dementia and stuff like that. And we ordered a whole bunch of them and we got them in and realized that a lot of them were AI generated images. And so it was like some of them are pretty cool, like pictures of kittens and things, but then you end up with, babies with lots of fingers, and it was a learning curve.
Yeah, I have a guide somewhere on our website that says these are the ways to order from Amazon to make sure you're not getting a bootleg. Make sure it's sold by and shipped by Amazon. Don't Happy Media is not a valuable company to buy things from, or whatever those, like they turn up for a couple of days and then they get booted off Amazon, and then they turn up again like a week later with a new name.
Could you share that with us?
If I can find it,
Okay, that would be cool.
I'll try and find it and send it to the mailing list. Is anybody doing anything cool or fun, or?
No fun here. So I was gonna talk about my career label stuff at web dev, but then someone cut a trunk line and we didn't have internet or cell service that day, so I missed the web dev sig. So I can share it here if you guys want to see where I'm at with it. I managed to generate career labels on our hold slips, which we decided we didn't want to do. So then I started working on a report template to create like a library directory that has a print button on it. So like you need a one-off career label, you can print it from there. All of this totally shouldn't be working on because I need the additional library fields before I can make it work. But I'll show you where I'm at. So this is the report template that I was talking about. Move my zoom controls. I think I have one of the. This is what the hold slip ended up looking like, which worked, and it's great, and it shoots out the slip, and you could just cut it off. But the problem with that is like if you need, if you're sending a bunch to the same library, then you're printing out the label a bunch, and you don't need that many labels. So the idea was to use this report that gives you the option to just shoot out a label on a slip instead. Another problem we're running in with to testing this out is a larger part of my libraries are starting to use thermal paper on their slips, and it fades pretty easily, pretty fast. So if things are floating around in a hot courier van for a while, we're worried that maybe those labels will fade to the extent that they won't be useful. So we're still sort of testing on that. Just to like show what this looks like behind the scenes, this is what the hold slip looks like. And it's doing different things. But it's this part down here that does yeah, it's just a bunch of inline CSS that's doing the like creation of the label, and then I'm using the mark org code to fill in some extra data and the branch address to fill in some extra data. But I need more fields than that to make it totally work, which is coming in the next version of Koha, which I'm excited about, but I haven't. So I'm gonna have to wait to like push this anyways. But my idea for this part of it is I'm gonna build it out. So like right now I've got a Google Sheet that keeps track of hours and stuff. So I'm going to build this out to be that and just have it living in Koha so that I can, and all that stuff is pulling from the admin area. So we can use this as sort of our library directory database and store everything there. Do I have the other thing? I was also playing with bookings. My brain is all over the place. So the courier label template is a report template. And it's doing basically the same thing. And so this is building a table off of that report. And then there's a button. And I think I might actually... I started doing it as a modal, and then I decided that was too much. So it's just like in there in the background of that page, generating the label portion. And then when you hit the print button, it just opens up a print dialog, which is actually most of that formatting is done in the JavaScript.
So this is going to be a presentation at the conference?
I was trying to avoid presentations this year, and I'm up to 3, so what's one more, right? Yeah, so this is it, where I'm printing the label. So all the styling is happening in the JavaScript here. It's building that out. But yeah, I don't know. I could do part 2 of report templating, maybe at conference, because I did some last year to talk about other fun stuff I've come up with.
Well, it's really intimidating trying to come up with an idea for a proposal for conference, because I feel like every time you think of something, then you're like, oh, but somebody else does it way better than me. And like I've seen George or Jason do this like 10 times better. But so I put in a proposal, and I'm hoping to kind of make my presentation be like, this is what you can do when you don't know very much. So that's kind of the direction I'm hoping to go.
And even if you feel somebody else does it better, it's still really important for you to do that presentation sometimes. You'll get better just by virtue of doing the presentation, and you keep learning stuff because you're like, oh, I'm not good enough yet. I'm not good enough yet. And then 2, like people like George and Jason need breaks sometimes. We can't depend on them for all the presentations at every conference, because there's going to come a day that they're going to be burned out, or in 20 million years they'll be retired, and then what's the conference going to be?
5 years.
I'm closer to 20 million, so.
So Juliet, never ever be afraid to do presentations, even if you think somebody else could do it better.
No,
Thank
yeah,
you.
I definitely appreciate when other people step up for that sort of stuff. And I think it's important to hear from not me and George on the same topics, because like that's showing you learned some stuff, and now you're showing how you learned it so that other people can learn from how you learned it, that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping.
Who all is planning on going to the conference in Providence? All right. Oh, Ashley kind of raised her hand quickly. I only put in one proposal to do a workshop, but there isn't. What I said is I want to do a workshop like I've done in the past, with a small group of people, um, in a separate room, quietly away from everybody else, not a full-on presentation. And I think that we've moved away from that in the last couple of conferences, and I kind of, I remember having a really good time sitting at a big table in Pueblo. And all I did was, answer questions, and I ended up showing like 6 people walking through the steps of changing the logo on your Koha staff interface, and using that as a way of introducing some of the ideas of how to use jQuery. And in that small group, that's perfect. But to do a presentation on that, it's a completely different experience. So hopefully they'll say, yes, we can do some workshops this year instead of everything having to be a full-on presentation. So And I did put in a proposal to do a presentation at WolfCon with Jason and Amber from NCKLS. Or was it Amber? No, yeah, it was Amber. So yeah, and so I'll remind everybody too that there is the Koha Foundation is planning on joining the Open Library Foundation, which is having their conference in the middle of September in Kansas City, which is one of the reasons I'm planning on going, because it's only, for me, it's about an hour. For Jason, it's probably 2 hours, maybe 2.5, right? And same for Amber from Manhattan, it's probably 2.5 hours, 3 hours for her to get there. So if you're not willing to drive from Michigan or Minnesota, I forget where Joel is, whether it's Michigan or Minnesota, it's one of those M states. We completely understand, but I don't know where WolfCon will be next year. Last year it was in London, and the year before that, I think it was in Hamburg. So I don't know when it'll be back in the USA again.
I'm up here in Minnesota.
Minnesota. I knew it was
Land of
Minnesota or
10,000
Michigan.
lakes.
This is not totally Consortia related, but at sysadmin Juliet, you asked me about the table thing where the tables. I did finally like replicate it in testing Docker, but I don't know how. But I opened a bug, so I was gonna share that in case you wanted to follow it and comment on it. It seems like what the sequence of events was I booted it up and then I closed the tab without logging out, and then I came back a few hours later and it was messed up. So I don't know what's throwing off the cookie, but something is throwing off the cookie when you're using save states on the tables.
Yeah, because I couldn't get it to duplicate that day, and then just last week I noticed it on somebody. So
Yeah, and it seems like it's a bug in main. So I don't know. Hopefully somebody else can figure out what's actually going on there.
Well, I know that the release of the next version will be, I think it's next Tuesday, isn't it? So the new version of Koha will be released, and it'll be a couple of months before probably the Bywater customers will start to get it in a couple of months. I don't remember if there's anything, we talked last time about the things that we thought were going to hit that were going to be exciting. The group holds priority will be in the new version. That's been pushed to master. The additional fields in library data table will be there. I don't know if anything else is cool coming along for us because the release notes aren't out yet, are they? They'll come out the day of, probably.
Yeah. One thing I came across, just a couple days ago because somebody asked me, it looks like you'll be able to edit notes for account lines transactions. So the situation we had come up with, the library had written off the fine already, and then they wanted to put a note on it that said this was written off because it was a mistaken charge. But the only way to do that at this point is to void the write-off and then re-write off with a note. So it looks like in the update we'll be able to just go directly there and edit that past transaction and add a note after the fact, which seems nice.
The thing I've asked for that I don't know if anybody has ever done any work with is make every place where you can modify a transaction have the ability to leave a note. Because right now you can do that on the transactions page, but if you go into some of the history and then use those individual line edit buttons, you can't leave notes on most of those. So
has anybody come up with a way to simplify the circulation table? I mean, it'd be great if we could hide columns, or because I've been working with that for several days now, all day. Like my eyes are burning.
I use jQuery to do that, and Christopher and I did a video on that. Let me find that. Okay, share screen.
This won't be as helpful as George Dole, but my solution for that was Netflix, where I watched a show during the 2 days it took me to go through the circ rules and make the adjustments I needed to make.
So what I've got is I wrote some jQuery that does this. I've got, it starts off with my defaults, and it's still kind of wide. It's got, but it's not, this is all of the columns. And I have 3 screens. I've got the middle screen, a screen on my left, and a screen on my right. If you have everything showing, it takes up 2.5 screens to show all the columns. But I've got a button up here to remove this left-hand navigation bar. That creates some more space. And then when I load this, I've got, these are just my defaults. So it's about 1 1/3 screens. But if I just want circulation stuff, I can click that and it just shows the things related to checkouts and renewals. And if I want just the things that are related to fees, I can click on fees, and that hides all the columns except the ones related to fees. And these are for requests, and these are for suspensions. And so all of those other columns are still there. They're just hidden when you click the button. And you can turn on and off individual columns. That's what all these are for. But then I've got these buttons at the top that go to the, these are the things that I almost always use when I'm in here. And so if I blow this out to 2 screens, it'll all fit on. It's easy to see on 2 screens. But I think that we shared that. I'm almost certain I shared that on the wiki. But or at least there's a version of it on the wiki. That's one of the things about it, is because every time a new column gets added to the circulation rules, you have to go in there and reconfigure it. I think the whole thing should just be done as a data table with the column configuration stuff.
I just put that bug in the chat.
Yeah.
There's no movement on it, but that would be ideal, where you could go in and hide columns by default.
So a long time ago, when Heather was still working at NEKLS, and I've been here almost 9 years, so it's been a long time since Heather worked at NEKLS. But Heather asked Bywater to do some work to the circulation rules. So instead of being, this wide, it would just be really tall instead. And so NEKLS signed a contract with Bywater to do that work. And then Heather left, and it was work that I wasn't invested in. And Bywater had Jesse Weaver was the person at Bywater that was doing that work, and Jesse left Bywater, and I never really followed up on it, and they didn't really have anybody working on it. And after a while, Brennan and Nate and I just talked, and we said, let's just let it go. We had paid for half of it, and about half of the work had been done. But the work that had been done, all that work to get everything moved out of, it used to be called issuing rules, and now it's called circulation rules. They rewrote all those tables as preparation to changing the way that whole format worked.
Okay, so that's in the wiki, George?
The work that I showed you is in the wiki, and I'm trying to find the link for that. And I think it looks like it was the stuff on the wiki was last updated for 2105. I was actually working on this not yesterday, but the day before, because one of the issues I'm having now is that with the Bootstrap upgrade, one of the things you might have noticed is that when you scroll, the column header gets out of whack. It doesn't line
Yep.
up with the columns. And so I was looking at that, I guess, Monday to try and figure out how to get the sticky header to stay consistent with the columns in the table. And I'm not sure that there's going to be an easy way to do that. But I'll look at that next week
Okay.
and make sure that it's updated, maybe updated from 3.0 to 4.0, because I think that there's some changes that I've made.
And I think it was at the sysadmin meeting, you talked about some code you were gonna share. Was that circ rules or?
I don't remember, so maybe I'll make a note to watch that recording and see what I promised to do.
Yeah, I think it was a report, actually.
A report to see all the silk rules for a given library.
Oh, yeah, that's like 5 reports.
Okay.
Sorry, I
Because,
just
yeah,
I'm
that
listening
was
while
circ
I'm
rules
eating,
related.
so.
And the thing that I talked about sharing today was how to not buy bootlegs.
Something I'd like to see on the circ rules table is like inline editing, where you click the box and it makes it active. I haven't opened a bug about that, but they use it in the point of sale system, so there's already like a precedence. And I think that would save a lot of headache where you're not
Instead of
like,
having to click on it and move it to the bottom of the table, you can just go right to that
yeah,
row.
I
Yeah.
can show you how it looks in point of sale because I was playing with that too because I can't get anything done. So you can edit the quantities. You just click in the box to edit. And I think that would be very, very handy in a giant table instead of having to like track it across the columns and the rows. And that's like a data tables feature. So it seems like something that could be enabled through development. I don't know if you could enable it. I guess if you're reinitializing the table, you might be able to do it with jQuery. I don't know. I haven't played with that.
Let us know how that
And
goes.
what you're saying, Jason, is you'd have the rule move up and down as you moved,
No,
rather
you
than
just
having
click.
to go to the bottom of the table all the time.
You would just click in the box you want to change and change it right where it's sitting.
Okay, yeah,
That would
that would
be,
help.
yeah.
That'd make things a lot easier. Yeah.
So you got a bug on that one, Jason?
No, it's on the to-do list.
Gotcha.
I'll file it.
Okay. Well, yeah, let us know. We would um, probably be interested in contributing something to that development.
The first time I did a presentation at a Koha conference was in Coeur d'Alene, and it was on the circulation rules. And at the time, I was just putting a plus minus in the header row. And if you clicked on the plus, it would, or on the minus, if you clicked on the plus and change it to a minus, it would just collapse that row or column and leave a plus there. And what I remember about that is people applauded. Everybody hates the circulation rules page. That table is just so enormous, and there's no good way to deal with it.
Well, it would help so much if we could just hide the things that don't apply to us. That would be a big plus.
And that's mostly what that jQuery does. And what I broke it down into was circulation rules, fee rules, request rules, and suspensions, because you know, who uses suspensions in the United States? I've never heard of anybody using it in the United States. The only people I met that use it are in India.
Right, they do in Europe too, in some places.
They might, yeah. The only human I've ever actually encountered, though, was somebody at the Portland conference from India. I can't think of his name off the top of my head.
No Christopher today?
Doesn't look like it.
Okay.
I have a
I haven't talked to him in a while, so.
I have a question that's completely unrelated to anything we're talking about. Do you all have a catalog concern button? If so, what does it say? Or what does it allow you to type in? For staff.
We didn't turn that feature on because we figured it would confuse people.
We're not
Usually if they
using-
have concerns about cataloging, they know they need to email our head of tech services.
Right now we're having an issue with that with cataloging. And so what we have been having them do is fill out a Google form. But then it's confusing because we don't know how exactly to get them to tell us which item. So we ask them to either do the title or the author. So we don't know if people know how to put a URL. So I didn't know if this was an easier so that it just attaches to exactly what they're looking at without them having to copy paste something.
I thought we turned that on, but it only works in the OPAC, doesn't it? Maybe I'm thinking of something that we haven't turned on.
We have it
I don't know.
on, but it's just the default template that pretty much I think just is to report like a bug or an issue with Koha itself, not with the catalog.
Yeah, there's two separate syspress for the catalog concerns. You can turn it on in the staff client or the OPAC, and it enables like a ticketing system basically, where you can go to the record and say there's something wrong with this, and then it notifies whoever you set up to be notified.
The email. Yeah, we have it turned off for the patron side, but on. Yeah. But it's confusing what it says.
I don't think I've recognized this. I just looked it up and I don't recognize this system preference at all. Maybe it must be a feature that snuck in there that I didn't learn about. So I was thinking of the OPAC report a problem with the checkout. So I'm going to have to play with this and see if I can use it to. The most common complaint I get, oh, cool, there's actually some education on it. The most common problem I've been getting lately is cataloging concerns have been this cover image is wrong.
We had a book with a picture of ice cream on it. So like a product image of a tub of ice cream. I had to just cancel the ISBN on that one because it was a problem on Amazon's end.
Yeah, we have that turned on. It just does a ticketing system to the cataloger. They really like how it works, so I don't have much to do with it myself. So it's not a catalog.
Do you have the wording of what it says on there or what it lets them type in?
Let me see.
I
Yeah,
can
we have our
show-
own wording.
I can show what ours. So ours is just, you know, under new, you go to catalog concern. And it's more, yeah, it's not so much a catalog concern. And we have that turned on just for the staff side. But I wasn't
Yeah,
sure
ours is
exactly.
just for staff too. Oh, you guys been having trouble with Koha? It's been really, really slow for us the last few days.
Yes.
Are you supported on Bywater?
Yes.
We have been almost every day having to call them to have them work on it because of issues with slowness or just completely having it shut down. It has to do with they need to migrate us to the Cloudflare and they haven't done it for us yet.
They must not have done it for us either because it's really slow.
The last update I saw said that they were going to send an email with a schedule to everybody on the 23rd, which is tomorrow.
I feel so out of the loop on all that. Maybe I'm not on a list somewhere or something. Is that coming directly to you or is it coming to the Bywater?
I think it came as an email, but it's also, if you go to the system outage page and go down to the bottom, and there's a notice there that says, we notice that a few of our partners are being hit by bots. Expect a ticket by Friday, February or May 23rd. And I know that I got an email about the same thing, more or less. So
They've been posting every so often to the Bywater partners, but I keep missing them because I have those set to filter to a folder.
the thing that it's been doing to us, we've had not horrible connections to Koha. We haven't had a lot of slowness issues specifically with Koha, but what it's been doing to us is it's been breaking the connection between Aspen and Koha, so that our members will try to log into Aspen and they'll get a Koha error message saying that they can't authenticate their account currently. So
We've been having the same issue.
It's been
So that was fun when I was trying to show everyone what I've been working on using Aspen and I couldn't even get logged in. So
yeah.
it's been affecting all our platforms. We've heard from Patron Point, and we've got the Twilio integration for voice notices. And I just started in the last couple of days seeing like a lot of random errors in the error logs for that. So definitely anything using the API connections are probably going to be seeing that if you're again, I don't know if it's across the board with all customers or most customers, but yeah.
I went to that introduction to Cloudflare thing that Bywater did, and that was one of the first things they said is over 50% of internet traffic now is AI. And so filtering out the AI traffic from our sites should greatly reduce the impact, the amount of work our servers are doing. So, oh, somebody updated the agenda.
Yes, I didn't want us to think that it was okay to leave.
Oh, okay.
So, we're new to Koha, which is why everything I'm talking about that I'm pretending is like news, it may not be to you guys, but I'm still learning it. Have your libraries complained about items that are auto-renewed showing up on checkout slips? And do you do anything to exclude those from the like quick slip, which says checked out today? And then the patron might have one item in hand that they just checked out, but earlier that morning, 3 things were auto renewed. So there's 4 items on the quick slip.
There's a couple different ways to handle that. I don't know if anybody wants to talk about theirs, but I'm going to find a video. It might take me a few minutes to find.
I've never had any complaints about it. I just looked at mine because I didn't know if it did that, and I see the video game that I had auto renewed for me this morning is on the checkout slip. So I think a lot of our patrons like having that information, but
But
I
does
can
it, do you have your slip distinguished like this was renewed, or does it really look like you could have stood there and checked out all those items right then?
No, yeah, you're right. It looks like you could have just checked. It just says checked out today, and it shows that I had something checked out today, which is actually something that auto renewed. So I would like to see how to customize that.
So Christopher and I actually did a video on that, and I'm having trouble finding it. So what we did were we did one video, and I can't find the video specifically right now because there are too many videos to look at. But I put the 2 pieces that we posted on the wiki in the chat box. So one of those, the first one, Christopher wrote, and it's a way to rewrite your the issue quick slip so it only shows the things that were checked out in the last 15 minutes. I think that, yeah, it puts a date, it date limits the things that appear on that quick slip to the things that were checked out in the last 15 minutes. And then the one I wrote limits to what was checked out at the library that you're logged in at. And I don't know, that would probably still include auto renewals. But this was something that came up when somebody else joined about a year ago, and they were asking the same question as they wanted the quick slip. The quick slip is designed to show everything checked out today.
Right.
And they
right.
said, we just want to see the things that were checked out in this session. Not the whole day, but just in this session. And so Christopher wrote his to show what checked out in the last 15 minutes. And so that was how we did it. We said, let's both come up with a way to solve this problem, with the different ways to solve this problem. And what he did is he wrote only shows the previous 15 minutes, and what I wrote was just shows what was checked out at this branch. Because that's a situation we have here where somebody will go to the Leavenworth Library and check out materials, and then they'll drive 4 miles down the road to the library in Lansing and check out materials, and then they'll drive down the road 15 minutes to get to Bonner Springs, and they'll check out things. And the quick slip you get at Bonner Springs is going to have all the things from Lansing and Leavenworth. And so I wrote it so that you just get the things that were checked out at the location you're at. And it would not be hard to combine those two.
Right. What is
those
the
2
language
ideas
that
into
they're
one.
in?
They're both in Template Toolkit, which is
Okay.
the language that well, actually this is a great time to look at the wiki.
Yeah,
So if you,
yeah, and I know there's like a whole template toolkit like website and stuff.
yeah,
I just wanted to be sure that was it before I investigate ways to tweak this and make sure I'm
Based
looking, at the right references.
kind of based on Perl, right? But like not fully.
It's part of it. Yeah, it's used in Perl, and the koha notices and slips. There used to be, well, if we look up at some of the older slips, let's go back up here and find some old ones. On the wiki, there's a notices and slips library, and these part of the wiki here has these are links to the default notices and slips for all of these past versions. Starts with 2211 and it goes up through 2411. I'll add all the 2505 notices once 2505 is completed. But some of the, particularly the older notices, you'll have this. Well, that doesn't have it. Here we go. This one, the koha started off using its own built-in template language for the notices and slips, and it includes these double angle brackets around the variables, and it pulls the variables right out of the database. And it worked, but you couldn't do anything with logic with it. And so you couldn't, and that's one of the things that Template Toolkit adds. And the first Template Toolkit slips that were created had to do with the auto renewals. And by adding Template Toolkit, it can have all these if and else if statements in it. And you can't do that in the bespoke koha syntax. There was no way to do that kind of logic. And so starting with these notices, which came around in about koha in about 2014 or 2015, the community started writing the new slips and incorporating Template Toolkit into the slips, because then you could do this if then statements in the notices and slips. But the trick with that is that means you've got another language to learn, Template Toolkit. So
George, can
And
I
there's-
share my screen for just a few seconds? Ashley, is this what you wanted to see? Let me. This is what our cataloging concern looks like.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what ours says.
Yeah, it's nothing real fancy,
Yeah.
but it does
So-
the job.
where does that placeholder language come from? Is there a way to define that in the system preference?
I think it's in HTML customizations, I think.
Oh, okay.
I'm pretty sure where that lives. And it lives
Yeah.
under the new here.
Oh, so like instead of a new item, you do a new cataloging concern or
Yep,
something
there
like
you go.
that?
Catalog
Okay.
concern template.
All right, that's cool.
That's where the language comes from anyway.
I'm gonna have to play with that. It'd be nice to get that.
Yeah,
I
it's
can
just
see a
in
lot
this
of advantages
menu.
of that.
And these rules are pretty strict about what you can't just say, oh, there's something wrong with this record. You have to definitely include some evidence in what's going on. But everybody in the system likes it, so.
Cool.
All right.
And you can also have it send them a notification saying that their issue has been submitted.
Yep.
Submitted the bug about inline editing of circline rules. So if you
I'm
want
already
to comment,
following it.
okay, good.
Quick question, if anybody knows about, since we're talking about template toolkit, as far as I'm aware, there's still like for each notice type, a specific limited amount of tables that it has access to.
Yeah.
There's a chart somewhere. Is there a way to expand that, or are you kind of hard limited to that at the moment? Like, is there a way to pull in something else from the database? Because yeah, there's certain tables where it's like we could use some more info.
Template toolkit, diving into template toolkit is like diving into a pool that's like 100 feet deep. It can really get complicated, and that's one of the complaints. So Christopher is not going to be at this year's koha-US conference, but the thing that we've done at the last two koha-US conferences is we've talked about the problems with notices and slips and with template toolkit. And my complaint has been that on the one hand, we had this hungry alligators syntax with the double angle brackets. And there was actually some fair documentation on how to use that. And then the developers decided that it would be good to have this to upgrade to template toolkit so that we could use this if-then logic in some of the notices. And they started doing all this work, but they didn't document it.
Mm-hmm.
And the documentation's been poor. And every time that I've asked a developer, well, not every time, but most of the times, especially early on, that I asked developers for help with it, it was like, well, you just have to use template toolkit. It's easy, go out and learn it. And so that's been the thing that we've been complaining about for the last two koha-US conferences.
Gotcha.
And things have gotten better, but there's still a lot of deep holes there because the like the overdue notices gets all of its data from uh, the overdues Perl module. And so go, you have to know what's in that module
Mm-hmm.
before you can start using those fields in template toolkit. And what's in that module is not easy for non-developers to look at that and go, oh, well, this is here. We can use that.
Mm-hmm.
It can get really complicated trying to access all the different variables that are available. So that's been one of the biggest issues has been a lack of documentation. It's gotten a little bit better, but there's still some big holes there.
Yeah, and Andrew talks about it a little bit in that link I just put in there about like they intentionally made it so that you can't access all the objects in each notice, because sometimes it doesn't make sense. But he also has documentation on using dumper in there, and I've used that with some success to like figure out that I can actually use extended patron attributes in my hold slip, even though it doesn't seem obvious that I can. So
Right.
it's yeah, I agree. Needs better documentation, which they're working on. There's a bug about that. But it's confusing.
That was the bug that I had the most complaints about is somebody posted, let's get rid of all of the hungry alligator syntax. There was one developer that was doing this big push to let's just go get rid of all of that syntax and move everything to template toolkit as quickly as possible. And that was my complaint on that bug, and I don't remember which bug it is so, we've got documentation for this. If we get rid of all of this, then we'll have zero documentation on template toolkit. So can we slow down and work at this bit by bit and try and build some better documentation? So, and then Christopher and I complained about it 2 years in a row loudly at conferences, and I think some people actually listened. So,
That last link was very helpful, actually. So I don't think I've
yeah,
come across it before. I've seen like another thing which was like vaguer in terms of what tables you had access to, but
yeah, I think that's on the
yeah,
wiki.
this one's I don't think I've run across it, so this is good. Thank you.
I wish that I had known more about this. the Bywater Solutions knowledge base. I've only been here once. I didn't know
I
there was
think
something
it's
this
still
cool
under
there.
wraps. Like they haven't fully launched the Zoha Does thing yet,
Ah,
but it's coming. It's like their new ticketing system and everything.
I could spend the whole rest of the day just reading this, and I'd be happy. Maybe I should print it out before I go home. Take it home with a red pencil and make some marks all over it. Well, we're over time. I don't know how we managed to go from what are we going to do to fill this hour to being 7 minutes past the hour. I will send out an email to everybody saying we're not going to meet in the month of June because it's during ALA and Weird Al. I'll share the reports I was going to share. I'll put those on the wiki and share the links to those on this page and this on this group and the system administration group. I'll find my webpage on how not to buy bootlegs. I'm pretty sure that should be pretty easy to find. And I'll update the wiki with the circulation rules helper that Joel asked about that I showed off earlier. So it's great seeing everybody. Have a good Memorial Day and all that.
All right, yeah, have a great Memorial Day. See ya.
take care.
See you all later.